Okay, so I'm ready to start setting out my my building footprint, and maybe then start setting out the lower levels as well. So here you can see I've got an example with the building there, parallel to the city road boundary, and set out from well, from a couple of points, but the basic set out is from the corner here, and you'll see there's actually a dimension there. A bit of a tricky one, but it's from this point here once you've got the other edge. So I'll show you how you can set all those things out using the measurements we've got here. And then we've got well, some levels and other things to think about, but the main thing is the overall building set out. So I'll start there, and then I want to show you how to do area plans so that you can get that site coverage area, and then compare that to your overall site area, which is a really useful thing. So into Revit, I'm going to start just using reference planes. So hopefully you're all used to that for a lot of your set out. So with a reference plane there, I'm going to start from the corner, from that boundary, just take it straight up. Now you can see what I've done there, just accidentally taken it to one side, so it's at the wrong angle. And you probably know you can try to rotate reference planes, but often it's easier just to redraw them. And hopefully you'll realise that the important thing with a reference plane is the angle. The length is pretty arbitrary anyway, and you can always adjust it after you've drawn them. So don't worry if you make your reference plane the wrong length, but definitely worry if it's the wrong angle. Make sure you get that right. Now I've got a boundary obviously along City Road with a set out there of 1830. I'll just go with that. So I'm just going to draw a reference plane below the boundary there, and you can see it's not dimensioning to that, it's dimensioning to something else. So I'm going to drag my temporary dimension witness line and try and snap it to my boundary, and then we can change that dimension. And then the next one is I'll zoom in, 21655. So always when you're working with these things, just make sure the measurement is coming from the object you think it is. So there, it's quite clear it's coming from the reference plane, so that's okay. So now that I'm at that point, then I can work out the distance from this reference plane to that diagonal boundary. But for that, I can't use a temporary dimension, so it's probably easiest to go and draw in a new dimension. And if you're not sure which dimension tool to use, generally aligned is the best. So I know sometimes you go to linear, because if you've tried dimensions in AutoCAD, linear is the main one you use. They've got the same things, you've got aligned and linear in AutoCAD as well, but in AutoCAD it's linear generally. In Revit you generally use aligned. So with aligned, I'm going to try picking the reference plane first. That's really important, because if I pick the boundary, it's going to try and go at the angle of the boundary. So the first object sets the angle with an aligned dimension. And then there's a bit of a trick with Revit. It should let you snap to intersections in some cases. Now, I'm not sure if it will in this case, but I'm going to try. No. Okay, so it's not snapping to my intersection, and you can see it's cancelled out that whole dimension. So what do I do to get that to snap? Just join another reference plane. So I can snap to the intersection as I'm drawing a reference plane, and I'll just draw that reference plane parallel to the previous one. So that can be helpful when you're dimensioning between things that aren't parallel. Just having an extra reference plane makes all the difference. And so now I can use an aligned dimension from the boundary to the also from the first reference plane to the second one, and then click to place that. Alright, so it's 1386, that's the spacing I've got now, but you can see here it should be 1700. So I can easily come back now and select the reference plane on the left, and then the dimension is going to come up with a blue number, which means we can change it and I can make it 1700. So now we've got the overall dimension for the other building. Now that 1390, what's happening there? Oh, that's from the car park, that's right. Yep, so that would be in the tower, that's right. So, yep, so that's right. So there, it's honestly not the best dimensioning I've ever seen. So, what are we going to do? We'll do it from the corner. Okay, so you've got the 1390 dimension, which is not to the edge of the building. So to do that, I'll use the same technique. I'm going to draw a reference plane up here, which is going to give me that set out. But it's going to get a bit confusing if I've got this reference plane as well that comes from the other corner. So I'm going to just shorten that so I know what I'm looking at. So this reference plane is for the corner down here. The reference plane I've drawn up here is for the other corner. And so again, I need to draw yet another reference plane now from the corner of the boundary. And believe it or not, this is quite common. It's typical actually when you have boundaries that aren't at right angles. That means pretty much every boundary. It's very rare to find boundaries that are at right angles. Then you'll often need to dimension from those boundaries. But you're not dimensioning usually from the angle of the boundary. You're dimensioning from a corner point, and you're dimensioning orthogonally at right angles, and that's what I'm doing here. So by drawing a reference plane through each corner of your property, then you give yourself a thing that you can set your dimensions out for. So it's quite typical to have reference planes drawn at each of those corner points. So now we've got the setback there, 1390, so I can put that in. And then the overall dimension, 42,160. So with a reference plane now that's parallel to the other vertical ones, you can see then it's giving me a dimension, but notice it's dimensioning to this reference plane. So I need to drag that grip over to the next one, which is where my measurement's coming from. And again, 42,160, yeah. So now I can change that. It's gone and tried to make a new one, but that's okay. I can select my reference plane afterwards and it'll remember where the dimension's coming from. So even before doing the any physical parts of the building, I can actually work out the footprint of the building just with the reference planes. Now I'm going to put some walls in, but just to make that clear that you can actually do areas or area plans without any walls or floors or anything that's physical. But what I might also do just to help with the upper levels is put in one more reference plane, because you can see here the set out. Oh no, it's badly dimensioned, so I'll leave that for now. Technically we should include that with the site cover, but it's pretty minor, so I'll leave that out for now. So I'm just going to go with it as a rectangular floor plate, which you can see is what you have on the basement level anyway. So maybe just to make it clear where my rectangle is, I can bring this reference plane back up, and then you can see the rectangular shape, which is the basement. So, so like I said, I will do a few basic elements before I start doing the areas. Going to the south elevation. Oh yes, okay, I've deleted all the levels, so that's good. I've got there the ground line level, so you might remember that one usually you want to leave alone because it's probably hosting all sorts of things like the other buildings. Yep, it is, so you can see it'll move those things, so usually try to avoid touching that one. But then ground floor here is probably pretty close to the height that I'll have for the ground floor. And then I'm going to go make a new level just with the level tool below ground floor. So remember, left to right is usually a good thing with levels, simply because it puts the tag on the second point. So if you go left to right and your tags are all on the right hand side, it's just going to make sure the tag goes on the same side. Then okay, so this is obviously going to be our car park, and so looking here, you can see, so car park level 1 and car park 2, they have exactly the same area, but you've got the ramps, well, you've got ramps going into each level. So that's one thing I might change a little bit, but otherwise the levels are quite similar. So here, this will be car park 1, and then when I do my next level, this is a little thing. It obviously is being friendly in that it's giving me the name that I want, but when you look in the project browser, you'll see that they won't go in the right order. Normally you want them going from lowest to highest, and so if you had a look at ways you can organise your project browser or get it to give you things in a different way. Oh, yeah, so that's what I was going to show you. That's that quick and easy way. There are more tricky technical ways. If you go and have a look at the options you have for your browser organisation, and then you can do filters, and there's all sorts of really cool things you can do with that. So you can even make your own types, which is really interesting when you get right into it. So again, you just need to have an awareness of that there are ways of making the project browser give you a bit more and organise things maybe in a different way. But like you're saying, an easy way of just getting the order to go in the order you want is to put numbers in front of the name. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to put, this will be what, 02. And what do you say here? Yes, every single time. I don't even know why they give you the choice. Just always say yes to that one, or you're creating a lot of pain for yourself. Then car park 2 is 01, because that's the lower level. And then ground floor will be 03, and so on. Level 1 will be 04. So that's a good way of organising or ordering your floor plans, especially. And as long as you say yes when it asks you that question, your ceiling plans should get renamed automatically too. I'm not thinking too deeply about the heights there, but a really good technique, I think, is to dimension as well as have the levels. So all I mean there is, if you draw a dimension between each of your levels and just place that somewhere that's easy to get to, instead of always calculating your level height from 0, you can easily look at the floor to floor height there and work with those values instead. So looking at the brief, you'll see that yeah, what I think, did I say 4 or 3? 3, yep, there we go. So that's a good starting point. You may need to change it depending on your services, but yeah, 3 should be pretty good for a car park. And so of course, when I select one of the levels that's been dimensioned, I could change the height by typing in a new level, but probably it's easier to just go to the dimension there and sort of make sure I said, yeah, okay, so I said there floor to ceiling. So we're working with floor to floor heights here, and so I'm just going to add a metre for now, and we might actually be able to reduce that later, but for now 4,000. And then same with the ground floor. So hopefully you can see how much easier it is working with those dimensions rather than always with the level heights. And then maybe just to get this closer to the real height that I'll need, I'm going to select ground floor and then car park 1, car park 2, all 3 levels just by holding down control. And I'm going to use the highly accurate shift and down arrow on the keyboard. I don't know exactly how much it's moving each time I do this, but that's good enough. So I don't know if you know that one, but holding down shift just makes the arrow keys move things further. Let go of shift and they still will move, but not as far. So that's a really good way of it's called nudging. It's a really good way of nudging things. And so there, the ground floor level there is pretty close to the ground. Maybe that's a bit too close because we know that the ground's sloping up, and I want that ground floor pretty close to the street level on the Darlington side. I mean, on the City Road side. So I might even just have a quick look at the levels there. Which one had my levels? This one. So the high point is what, 41.5 roughly. Oh no, here we go, 42. So this point, 42.5. Yeah, 42.5 is about the high point. So looking at the elevation again. Okay, so I've taken that all the way down to that's 41.64. So I'm going to go back up, try and get it to close to that, 42.440. And there's another trick. When you zoom, that changes the amount that the arrows move. So if you want to make it go finer, zoom in, and it will hopefully get onto the accuracy level that you want. There we are. You could use the move tool if you want to do the same thing. So now my car parks are well and truly underground, and that's what I wanted before starting.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, sure.
Now you were using the arrows up and down.
Yep.
Could you just click on where and fill in the...
You could, but moving all 3 of them together would be a bit tricky like that, that's all. That's the only reason I was doing it like that. So now, if I go to one of those car park levels, by rights it should show me the, there we go, the site like this. So you can see there it's actually showing the ground hatch pattern through everything almost, because we're cutting through the ground fairly deeply there. But notice how in this one it doesn't. It's to do with your site settings. So if you go to massing and site, there's an arrow next to model site. On that panel there's a little arrow there. And so you can try changing the elevation of the poche base. So poche is just a fancy word for hatch. Essentially, it just means a solid hatch in this case, even though, or any hatch really. So I'm going to try making that 8 meters. Still isn't fixing it. So I'll try another trick. I'm going to right click on car park 1 and then create view template from view, and we'll call this basement plan. Click OK. And now I'm going to right click on car park 2 and then apply template properties and just use basement plan. Still not doing it. I'll come back to that. It's a really fiddly thing when you don't get the ground hatch. And yeah, you do. Yep, you should have it. So you want to see that ground hatch going all the way around your walls. So it's a nice thing when it works, but I wouldn't spend too long on it, because I know, having done it quite a few times, that even if you do get it to work, once you start using a lot of sub-regions and breaking your site up generally, it's going to mess this up completely. And usually what I find is that you've got to go over it with a filled region, with an earth hatch for a lot of those levels, because that earth hatch just gets messed up so badly by your all the things you do to your site. So if it works, that's a good thing, but if it isn't working, like mine here, you know, if you play around, you will get it. I've made it work plenty of times, but like I said, don't spend too long on it, because you probably find you need to fix it in a different way, using something you're probably really used to already, filled regions, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to start then with the base, really the foundations is what we're doing here. So you'll have a wall, obviously, that's tanked, so it's got to be waterproof with earth around it, and then the floor, concrete floor sitting under that. And then I'm sure you've used this building pad tool, or maybe not. Have you all used this one? Yeah. So it's optional, but you can use that as your floor. I've found that it limits you quite a lot if you do that though, because you can't use a lot of the floor tools with it. So things like slab edges don't work with building pads. So you're better off using the building pad for something else, and so I just find if you use it for the foundations, in other words, the things that go under your slab, your gravel or your sand and all the other things that are there to give the base for your footings. So that's what I use it for, and I think that's a pretty good approach. And so you can do either first, but I might start with the building pad. And I don't have any walls that I can pick, but that's okay. I can just go and draw a rectangle and draw that over my reference planes. And then my level there is right, but I'm going to then change the height offset to what I think the floor will be, which is, I'm going to say it'll be about 150, might be 200, but no, for a building like this, 150 I think would be about right. That's all I'm going to do for the pad, so I'm just going to tick to finish and then show you in 3D. Got a hole excavated into the site now, and then just to start with a very basic layout for the car park, you could go and then put walls in, and there I would use a generic wall type to start with rather than trying to choose one with a certain construction. Generic 200 or 300 for a basement wall like this. I think 200 should be fine. Here they're actually solid brickwork, but you might end up doing concrete. So I think allowing 200 is okay. Location line needs to be on finished face exterior, and the height doesn't really matter because I'm going to change that afterwards anyway. And then I will simply use pick lines. Just to show you a few tricks, I'm sure you know an easier way, but with pick lines I can use tab. Oh no, normally I could use tab. Do you know why it's not letting me use tab? Yeah, that's right, it should let me do that, but the reason it's not working is because my building pad's below the view. So my building pad's down below the level I'm working on, so it won't let me pick it. Normally it would though, that's the trick I wanted to show you. But let's do a rectangle instead. And so there, you just need to make sure your walls go the right way. Notice how there the walls go inside, but if I go in different directions, well, with a rectangle it's pretty straightforward, but when you're using other options, you might see that the wall goes to one side if you go one direction, but if you go the other direction, the wall's going to go the other side. So watch out for that. And really, that's what you get. Make sure you're thinking of the location line as the sidedness of the wall, whether you're drawing the exterior face or the interior face. You shouldn't be thinking in terms of left and right, but whether you are drawing with that that part of the wall. And then you'll find that once you start thinking that way, that you might see the walls going the wrong way. The walls going, in this case, on the right side, but if I was going down, I might still want the wall on the other side. But the solution isn't to change to finish face exterior. Do you know the option that lets you flip it as you draw? Space, exactly. So flip it with space, and that would be the right way to do it, because you want the exterior side to be on the reference plane in this situation. If I change to finish face interior, then the interior face is on the reference plane.
And does it mean that if you send it out properly now, later on when you go to CC and you go, alright, I want a brick,
Exactly.
or whatever,
Exactly.
it's still going to be the exterior.
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. Revit needs to know because of those things. The materials like brickwork will go on the outside layer. Do you know how you can see it in the wall type actually? Where you see these? I'll show you. So when you go to edit type, when you've got a wall, Notice at the top you've got exterior, bottom is interior. So when you add layers, the ones towards the top are on the outside, the ones towards the bottom on the inside. So it needs to know that for the walls, but also when you join things like floors and roofs to your walls, it needs to know that. Don't be too worried about it. If you get it wrong, you can easily fix it. And you can tell whenever you select a wall just by looking at it in plan, these arrows. And this is pretty common with a lot of things in Revit. Those arrows should be on the outside. So say you've got a window. You can't tell often with a window whether it's the right way. This one you can because of the glass, but a lot of them you can't. But when you select it, again, the arrow's got to be on the outside. So I've got my my walls, and then I'm just going to put a quick floor under them. And this time, the trick will work. It's on pick walls. If I go to the outside edge, tab, there we are. Click and it will select all of them. And I'm going to do it to the outside face because it's my lowest floor. So the lowest floor normally should go to the outside edge of your walls, particularly if it's for an underground floor. And so that's done, tick to finish. And I'll just then make sure I've got a section that shows that. Now I've got a section, but it's not showing it because probably it's not in the right place. Let's find it. So here my section is not showing because it's probably in another view, or it's probably was created originally in another view. I'm just going to go through a few of these to try and find it. But if it's too hard, probably it's easier to delete that section and make a new one. So in my lowest level, I'm just going to click the section tool for a couple of lines, or 2 points, sorry, going through the building. Extend that and double click on the arrowhead to open it. So all I'm going to show you there is that the floor sits on top of the pad, and so later you can add things like the slab edges to do your footing thickening at the edge. Really it's a ground beam that runs around the outside of the building, and then we can give the pad a hatch to show gravel or something like that, and that's usually a pretty good setup. While I'm here I can also bring the levels out. So I've got that basic footprint. Now I can show you area plans, and they're really easy. Once you've got the set out, it's on the architecture tab. You can then click on the area button, and then you'll see underneath the only option you can choose at first is area plan. So I'm going to just use the ground floor level, and yeah, that's fine. So then here it's going to ask me if I want to automatically create boundary lines, and you do need to think about this one a bit, but I'm going to say yes. Yeah. And it didn't give me anything anyway. To make sure it didn't give me anything, I'm going to make a window around all I can see, click on filter, and no. Okay, so if it had made something, I would have had areas or area boundaries in this list. So I gave it a chance to make those things automatically, but it couldn't. That's okay, I'm going to draw them. So to make my the areas that I want measured, so I've been stupid. I made a rentable area plan. So I'm used to doing this for interiors. I'm going to go back and make another area plan now. So I'm just using the same tool as before, area plan under area, but this time I'll remember to change the type to gross building, which is what we want here. Those rentable areas are really good for interior areas, but gross buildings are really good for the whole floor space. And again, I'll give it a chance to make some boundaries for me. It probably won't. No. That's alright. So now notice in my project browser, I've got two new categories. I've got area plans gross building and area plans ground floor. Area plans rentable, and both of them have just the ground floor area plan. So now to do a very simple area for that floor space, I can draw area boundaries. So I'm just going to click on the area boundary tool, and I'm going to try using pick lines. It's not letting me because these things are going to be below the level I'm on. So I'll have to go and just draw lines or maybe rectangles, and it should at least snap to the reference planes. There we go. And I'm also going to do an area for the site. Now, with any luck, it will let me pick the boundaries. No, so I'll draw lines for those too. So again, just snapping onto the corner points. There we are. Okay, so that's enough to give me basic site coverage areas. I'm going to go and turn on the crop region in this view just to crop it a little bit and make it a bit neater. There we go. And then, then I'll start putting in some areas. So the area boundaries define the shape of your area, but then to get a measurement for that area, you still need to put an area object inside those boundaries. So the area object, you'll see once it comes up, when it's not working, just looks like this. You get a rectangle with a little cross through it, and it'll tell you area not enclosed. But if you go over an area that is enclosed with those boundaries, it'll come up with the cross stretching all the way to the edges of the boundary. So I can place it anywhere in here, inside that site area. And then I'm going to place another one inside the building footprint. Zooming in, you'll see it's already going to give me the calculations of those areas. So that in itself is useful, just to give me those areas, especially when we make this into a shape that's not rectangular. But then you can make it look a bit prettier than that as well, and that's another nice thing that they give you with Revit. On the Annotate tab, you'll see there's this really cool tool that's so underused, it's not funny, but it's one of the best little helper tools in Revit. It's called Colour Fill Legend. So if you haven't seen this one, it's one of those really handy tools. Again, under Colour Fill, just click that Colour Fill Legend button. Then don't worry too much about the options. You can just click to place it. And then again, don't worry too much about these options. Just click OK to start with. And then you can see it's put a colour over all of my areas. And that's the same colour as what I have here. Now to make it work the way that I want it to, I'm going to select that legend object, and then you'll see you get the option to edit scheme on the ribbon up there. And all I'm going to change there is the option for the colour to name. That's it. And look at it again, click OK about the message, the colours. That's it. You won't see too many other changes once you do that. So I'm going to click OK, and then you'll see what that name option will give you. So here, I'm going to select, it's not actually the area, it's the tag. So the area is the cross. So that's the thing that gives you the measurement. But the tag is just the text there. So I've selected that, and now I can click again on the title, or the name of that area, which is area, and we'll call it something better. So building footprint. Site cover, anything like that would be okay, but building footprint, that's okay. And so notice it changes the colour because it's got its own name, and each name will have its own colour. So this area over here, which is called area, I can also rename that, and I'll just call that open space, or sorry, let's get a name for it on this drawing. No, we'll just call it open space. So and again, when I hit enter, it will change colour sometimes, but no, in this case it's kept the same. Those colours are basically random. So if I select the legend again, you can see straight away before I do that that it's got the colours that are coming up on the areas. If I select that and then go to edit scheme, you can change the colours, they're just Pantone colours. Click there and you can, if you want to, go to the full Pantone list and get them from there if you like Pantone. Well, it's a side area, isn't it? So green's not such a bad colour. Okay, so it's a different green, and then maybe the building I will make something a bit more intense. Maybe orange or something. And it's really good having all these different colours when you've got areas within the building. So you've got different tenancies and a foyer and core. You can break those areas up and use the same tool to give you these automatic legends.
Now, because of the way we set up the boundaries there,
Yep.
if back on ground floor or basement you move one of those walls,
Yep.
will it automatically adjust the
No,
boundary?
no, not the way I've set it up because I haven't locked them. But you could easily lock those boundaries to a wall and then it would go with it if you wanted to. Oh, just with the lock tool. So, well, I'll do that now. So I might have set out here. So I'll just do this tower, and so it's 6 metres from grid A. So until I get the grids, it'll be a bit tricky. But let's see if I can do the math. Grid A is another plan. It's painful. Well, I'm just going to eyeball it. So that looks to me like it is 12 by 12 metres. Let's just say it is, and we can always change it. And it's coming out from the building. Yeah, that's about 1500. Yeah, so again, let's just say it's 1500, and it's a good thing if we have to change it. So I'll draw some reference planes. Set out 1500 from each side of the building. And so these are the things I'm going to lock my boundaries onto. So I'm going to draw some new area boundaries. And, oh, now sorry, I need to put some more reference planes in actually, because I need to have the full width, which is, what's that, 12,000? No, that's too much. Let's make it 8,000. Yeah, that's about right. So here, just make that one the same. Yeah. So it would be the same if I had walls. I could lock the boundaries to the walls just as easily. So there's a few different ways of locking things. When you're drawing, say, an area boundary, but anything else as well, you can lock things as you draw them. So here, if I've particularly got chain turned off, draw a line, here we go. It'll sometimes give you the option to lock. So you can see that open padlock. If I click on that, then the boundary is permanently locked to the reference plane, and if I move the reference plane, the boundary will go with it. And you can do that with walls or anything else. You don't always get that option, even when you're drawing things. So say you've got two objects and they're not locked together, then a really good option is to use the align tool. One of the best tools in Revit actually. So if you're not using this one a lot, then you probably need to look at the way you're doing things and see how you can use it to help you. It's just a fantastic tool. So when you click on align, so you know, you pick the object you're going to align with first, then the thing you want to align with it or line up with that object. And then it will always give you the lock option. So people doing a lot of this work, setting constraints and things like that, will use the align tool constantly throughout the day. So I can lock that. So I'm going to leave it and just show you I could use align even though they're lined up. I can still use the align option just to get the lock option. So if I click on that reference plane and then my boundary that's already in line, but when I click on it, then I get the lock tool. So align is usually a good way of getting lock. Otherwise, I'm just going to draw my boundaries. And look, it's good when you start thinking about how you can lock things together to make your life easier. It will open up a lot of possibilities for you. But one tip I can give you there is that you don't want to go overboard with it. If you lock too many things together and set too many constraints, you're asking for trouble generally, and you probably end up creating work for yourself rather than reducing it. So just think about when you should be using that lock option. Otherwise though, I can then finish this boundary just by joining these together, and you can see there, once that is a continuous area, it'll automatically spill this over into it. So that's what you need to do. And so, probably obvious, when it was a rectangle, you could have calculated that area pretty easily just by multiplying the length by the width, or the width, or the breadth. But once you start getting more complex shapes, this isn't a whole lot more complicated, but it would be 3 calculations to get the area, because you could only, I think, reduce that down to 3 rectangles. That's all I can do in my head anyway. I can't think of any other way. So, well, do you know how it would be done with a more complicated shape than this? So in the old days, before you had computers working out the areas for you, in this case you would break this down into a big rectangle and then 2 small rectangles and just add them up. So that's the only manual way of doing it. So you might be thinking, well, that's great for things that are all rectangles, but what if you've got some diagonal lines and other shapes? What do you do? Exactly, break it all down to triangles. And there's still people who do that. I know guys who use AutoCAD only if they have to, and do everything else by hand if they can. And some of them are not that old. One of them's only in his mid-30s, but he just likes doing it that way. And he still sits down and calculates all his areas using that method. Lots of triangles. But once you know how Revit can do it, that might make your life a bit easier. And so here we've got these 2 numbers, which added together give us the total site area. But there's another way of getting that, which I might just check to make sure you know before we look at the schedules. So do you know that you can get the boundary? If we look at another drawing where it's not going to show those areas, but I can there select the boundary object. So boundaries, site boundaries, should give you an area readout, and that's more reliable than adding together those figures that you have in an area plan, because they're rounded off. So make sure you know your site area as an accurate measurement taken from your boundary dimensions. And so you could do a schedule in Revit to show all of those things, and I will show you schedules later, definitely, but I think we'll run out of time if I do it tonight. So what I'll do instead is just show you quickly that you can use Excel. And so what I'd be doing if I was you, I think you should definitely do this. Get the figures as you find them from Revit and put them into a separate Excel file, because you're going to need them later, both for your statement of environmental effects and also your their application form. And it's an easy thing just to record in Excel. Excel is much better at managing tables of data than Revit anyway. So I've got the site area, and then now I've got those other areas, which will keep changing probably, but I can at least note down the way they are currently. So building footprint. Have any of you used Excel to do calculations? Oh, good. Oh, brilliant. Okay, excellent. It's brilliant. I mean, if you're doing calculations any other way, then you're doing it the wrong way. Yeah, it is. It's a lifesaver, really, because you'll end up with lots of calculations doing this work. So, open space is the other one. And so what's that one? 896. And then 1281, but we know that really it should be this minus the building footprint. So instead of typing that number in, I'm going to try equals, for the open space, equals this minus, oh sorry, wrong way around. So equals the top one minus the bottom one. Okay, so it's not too bad when it's been rounded off. Then we need a site cover percentage. So that is another simple calculation. It is, so again, equals, to do a formula, site area, no sorry, this time it's the other way around. So it's equals again, building footprint over or divided by site area. There we are. So that is the site coverage as a ratio. So it's 0.41 to 1, but you typically express site coverage as a percentage rather than a ratio. So all you need to do there, obviously you'll know, converting a ratio to a percentage or a decimal to a percentage, do it the easy way, don't try and use the Excel formula, just multiply it by 100. And then another little thing, probably mostly know this, but you can reduce the decimal places as well. So 41%, not too bad. As long as it's under 50, that's good. You probably can go over 50 if you really, really want to, but if you keep it under 50, that's definitely going to be okay. So that's all you need to do, maybe as a starting point. If you do get that far, have a go at setting out the car park, like it's shown in the example here. You've all used the parking features in Revit, the parking spaces and those other things, yeah.
I'm more interested there in where you're putting your columns and things like that.
Oh,
because you're putting that much detail in
yeah, oh yeah. So you don't even need to draw the columns yet, just do grids. So if you put grid lines in, using these spacings, that'll be a pretty good setup. And then obviously the columns are going to follow the grids. So that'll be enough though for you to put the car spaces and the other things. Once you've got the grids, you don't really need to draw the columns right away. Oh, for the grids? Oh yes, I've given you a spacing to start with. So in the brief, just make sure I know where it is. Should have been at the beginning. Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, it was something like 10 metres by 8.5 or something.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yep, it's there. Yep, so it's not in this one, it is in the other one. Yeah. So yeah, so just use that one, and you'll see. So this fits in with that. So this is they're 8 that way, and then 6 the other way. So that would work. But you can go bigger. So you can go up to 10 metres if you want to. But yeah, you need to have those things set out as you work out the car parking, because you actually determine the layout of your car park based on the grid usually, and vice versa. That if you want to do certain, like have a certain number of car spaces, then that might determine the spacing of your columns as well. So yeah, anything up to 10 metres, even 11 is achievable, but 10 metres is a good limit to put on yourselves. Then the beams don't need to be too big, but or you can sometimes do it with just a slab without any thickening for the beams, which is really nice when you can just do a single thickness. But again, 10 metres will just mean that you need probably some slab thickening or some beams, and that's easily achievable. They've got much bigger spans. You probably all know that buildings these days can go up to 100 metres. They've got for those sports stadiums and things like that. That's crazy. You're getting into things that need to be engineered by geniuses, and so avoid those big spans. But 10 metres is not a problem at all. So maybe I'll let you start on that, unless you've got any questions about those things. But hopefully area plans, once you know how to do them, will be a really useful thing for you. I find them one of my favourite tools.